Welcome to the Daily Insider here on VegasInsider.com. I am Kevin Rogers and happy to be with you here on Friday, August the 20th, 2021. And we'll have plenty of NFL talk today and get into some Major League Baseball as well. As we welcome in our guest today, it is Mark Franco, who is one of the top NFL handicappers on VegasInsider.com. In fact, he is 5-0 so far in the preseason. He's perfect so far in the preseason. And we bring Mark on to the live stream today. Mark, good to talk to you again. How are you?
I'm good, Kevin. Thank you for having me.
And the NFL has treated you well so far. You actually had the Patriots last night as they took care of the Eagles. Jalen Hurts, he was sick before the game, so they had to resort to Joe Flacco, and he did nothing offensively, and the Patriots ended up cruising. What was your thinking behind taking New England last night?
Kind of got a little lucky that Hurts was out last minute. Flacco played pretty good week one in the preseason, and we saw the real Joe Flacco last night against the Patriots. Obviously, I think his career is done. The play was more on the Patriots than it was against the Eagles. Obviously, the Eagles have a new coaching staff. I think they're trying to find a lot of things to figure out, where Belichick has a little bit more under his belt, so to speak. And I think Belichick comes into this preseason where I would say he normally doesn't care a whole lot, but I think he cares more this year than any other because the Patriots didn't make the playoffs last year. And I think with his quarterback situation, with Cam Newton, obviously, and Mac Jones, Mac Jones came in last night, and from what I saw, it played very efficient football. I didn't watch a whole lot of the second half once New England got the game pretty much out of control by the second quarter. Nice, easy game to win in the preseason. You don't get many of them. And you just got to be selective in the preseason. So I'm just kind of trying to pick my spots here and there. And that's how I turned out to be 5-0 so far in the early going of the preseason. But again, Kev, we need to remember that unlike every year in the past, last year, no preseason games. We only have 3 preseason games this year. So you're going to get less of a sample size in the preseason to judge some of these guys. So, therefore, the starters are going to play a little bit more here in week 2 and probably even more so in week 3 than they normally would because now we've got a 17-game slate. They cut one of the preseason games out. So I think preseason becomes a little bit more important that there's only 3 games as opposed to 4.
You know, we've seen a lot, Mark, of unders so far in the preseason. And, again, when you don't have starting quarterbacks in there, when you have backups in there, that you feel like the clock runs. And have you been trying to ride some of those unders, or just saying, I'm going to back off and stick to the sides because you don't know when things kind of go haywire in these games? Even with the low totals, you don't want something to happen where you're cruising along and then all of a sudden these games end up going over the total.
Absolutely. That's one thing I do not really dabble in is preseason NFL totals. I'm so far strictly 5 sides so far this year. Couple things in that is, as you mentioned, the odds makers know what they're doing, and the totals are very, very low. So it's difficult to bet an under, even though a lot of these games are, 17-10 type of scores. You're not going to see a lot of coaches give away much on offense. They're not going to reveal much of their playbook. There's not going to be that many big plays, but you got turnovers, you got special teams play. One big touchdown can literally weather alert, storm in Las Vegas coming. Anyway,
is everything gonna be okay?
It's just a thunderstorm warning. We get them quite often when it gets to be 110 degrees out here in the summer, but summer's coming to an end pretty soon, and it'll be nice fall weather here in Vegas pretty soon. But sorry about that. I got sidetracked. I just don't think totals are as easy as maybe they are to some people, but to me, for the most part, I stay away from totals in the NFL preseason.
Now, I want to go back to New England for a second, Mark. And do you think, or when, it's not do you think, because eventually it's going to happen the way it's setting up, when do you think Mac Jones will end up being the starting quarterback and taking over for Cam Newton?
I think if he plays well again next week in week 3 of the preseason, why not throw him in there week 1? I know most teams like the Jaguars, for an example, they're going to put Lawrence in there because they're not really expected to go anywhere this year. The Patriots obviously have implications of wanting to get back to the playoffs. Does Matt Jones give him that best chance on week 1? Belichick's probably going to be a little bit stubborn and think that Cam Newton, the veteran, is going to give him a better shot. But I'm going to guess by week 3, because I don't believe in Cam Newton. I don't think he's going to be anywhere near the same Cam Newton that he was years ago. I think he's regressed in his career. He's going to be an average quarterback at best this year. I think after 2 or 3 starts, Mac Jones gets the job and hopefully stays healthy and hangs on to it.
You're based in Las Vegas, Mark. Now, the Raiders, their second season there, and they had no crowd last year because of COVID, and now they're starting to get them in there at Allegiant Stadium. Raiders play the Rams coming up tomorrow night, and what insight can you tell us about the brawl that they had at their practice yesterday?
I didn't see too much of it, but I heard Gruden this morning, and he was pretty ticked off. It was I guess it was between the special teams of the Rams and the Raiders. Got into some kind of scuffle, turned into a major scuffle, and both coaches decided to kill the rest of the practice. Being here in Las Vegas, obviously keeping a close eye on everything the Raiders do. Their practice facility is down here in Henderson. It's absolutely beautiful. They've had fans packed the bleachers just to watch practice so far during training camp. Because of the heat here, they practice at 7:30 in the morning. And then they have a second session at 9:30 in the morning. The rest of the day, they're inside doing film and other type of work. But, going up against the Rams this week, I don't know. The Raiders seem to care more about this game than the Rams do. I haven't made a decision on pulling the trigger on this game yet, but don't think the Rams have a whole lot of interest in here in this game. I think the Raiders do. The one thing I want to follow for the Raiders is Marcus Mariota. He got banged up in camp last week. Is he going to play this week? Is he going to play some? I think that would account for for a wager on that game, but not really in love with that game, Kev, to be honest with you.
Just going back to last week with the Rams, Mark, and their loss to the Chargers, and Sean McVay has just made it clear that he cares little, if to nothing, about the preseason. He'd rather have his guys be healthy. And now that Matthew Stafford's the quarterback, Jared Goff went to a Super Bowl with them. We know about the trade with the Lions. What impact do you think Matthew Stafford has with this Rams team moving forward? Not necessarily the preseason, but in the regular season, this tough NFC West. You think he's at the end of the line, or Stafford's got one run in him to get the Rams pretty far?
I think Stafford's got a run in him. I really do. Playing for such a mediocre team in Detroit all of his career and still put up the numbers that he has, I think he's got something left in the tank, and I think he's a really good fit for McVay and the Rams. But you want to talk about a little ironic, what we see a big difference in the preseason lines to what you would see in a regular season game. The line has went up to the Raiders against the Rams this preseason weekend to 6.5. So when you see the Raiders laying 6.5, you know the Rams are not going to put in much effort. The odds makers know that. They're reading about it. And like you said, McVay just doesn't really care about the preseason. And I don't think Stafford is going to play in this game anyway. But if that was a regular season game, obviously the Rams would be the favorite, not the Raiders.
Tonight, one of the 2 preseason games, the Chiefs play the Cardinals as the ESPN game, and the Chiefs ended up beating the 49ers last week. The Cardinals edged the Cowboys. Kyler Murray didn't play. DeAndre Hopkins didn't play. Patrick Mahomes played in a series, I think, for Kansas City last week. But apparently, Andy Reid came out and said these guys are going to play. The starters are going to play about a half or so. So, any thoughts on that Chiefs-Cardinals game with the Chiefs as a 3-point road favorite?
He was pretty adamant too, Andy Reid. He was pretty adamant that the starters are going to play the full first half. But Andy Reid's been known to lie before, so I don't know if they'll play the entire first half. Well, they'll probably see extended action in the first half, but I still don't think Kansas City is going to give away anything. They have no reason to want to show off their offense, so to speak, in a preseason game and really give anything away out of their playbook. So knee-jerk reaction was, hey, maybe you should look at Kansas City, especially Kansas City first half in this game, being that they're going to play all their starters. But I passed on that game.
What have you been looking at, Mark, for week 1? Has anything kind of stuck out for you to begin the season? If it's even the Thursday night game between Dallas and Tampa Bay, if you have any thoughts on that, is there anything that maybe sticks out to you? Not that you pull the trigger on yet, but at least something early on where you have an eye and you're like, oh, that's an interesting line.
Well, I usually don't bet at this time of year, week one, just because there's so many things that can happen between now and the end of the preseason and training camps. But the one game that I did already bet for week one of the NFL, September 12th can't come soon enough, is we got the Cardinals visiting the Titans. And this line to me is a little bit short. I expect it to go up by the time we get to the regular season. Right now, Tennessee is a solid 3-point favorite everywhere at home against Arizona. And my feeling here is that Tennessee is just too good an offensive team going against the team in the Cardinals, who I don't think they improved their defense enough. Are they a playoff caliber team? They were almost a playoff caliber team last year. Their offense is going to be fine, I think, but is their defense going to be improved enough over a season ago to get a playoff run, especially playing in the toughest division in football in the NFC West? So at this point here, I think the Titans will be able to run the ball with success. Tannehill has shown he doesn't have to do a lot to win games. I think -3 at home for the Titans against the Cardinals is a little bit of a short number. So that's the only game I have been on so far for week one.
Well, I got to ask your opinion on this one, Mark, as far as I see your hat that you're wearing, your Miami Dolphins hat and your Miami Dolphins shirt, and you're a big Dolphin fan. I see it right there that Tua Tagovailoa last week played the first half, had an interception in the end zone against the Bears, and then Chicago ended up winning. Justin Fields led him back in the second half. Not necessarily preseason game number one, but at least for the season. Dolphins get the Patriots out of the gate, then the Bills at home. What do you see with Tua this year now that it's his team? Doesn't have to worry about Ryan Fitzpatrick, being the guy, and then eventually Tua comes in. It's Tua's team right now. What do you think about the Dolphins' chances in the AFC East this year?
I think clearly they're marked for a second or third place finish right there with the Patriots. I think both teams will be even. Buffalo is above both of those teams, no question. The Bills should win the NFC East, AFC East again. But when it comes to Tua, I think the sample size we got last year was small. He was 6-3 as a starter last year. A lot of that had to do with playing good defense on the other side of the football, where he didn't have to make big plays. But the Dolphins put the right people around him, I believe. We got Will Fuller. You drafted a wide receiver first round. There's talent around Tua. It's a matter of him just playing within himself. I think his hip injury is finally healed up enough where it's not in the back of his mind all the time. And I think he's going to have a decent season. I don't think he's going to come out guns a-blazing, so to speak. But for the Dolphins to be a playoff team, he's definitely going to have to be better than a decent quarterback to get through the season and have Miami make the playoffs.
Mark, the final thing I want to ask you before we let you go, again, you go back to the Raiders for a second. They play Baltimore in week one. Monday night game, Allegiant Stadium, Ravens in town. Raiders will be an underdog in that game. What kind of atmosphere are we going to see there? Remember last year, even though there was no crowd, the Raiders beat the Saints in week 2 on Monday Night Football in their first game in Las Vegas. But now you got the crowd Monday night on ESPN. How do you think that the Raiders can, I hate to use the term pull the upset. They are an underdog, but to win that game against Baltimore?
Well, good job by the NFL for putting the Raiders on Monday Night Football to showcase the stadium and the fans. If you think that the fans in Oakland were crazy, they're going to be just as crazy here. It's Raider Nation. That's what they do. They travel from everywhere. You can't get a ticket. Games are sold out. Tickets on the secondary market are outrageously priced in the $500 range. We're talking about for a regular season game, I can go down to Arizona and get a ticket for $50 and pretty much watch any team I wanted to. So there's going to be some visiting fans there because obviously everybody travels to Las Vegas. And if you're an NFL fan, what better road trip to go see your team than to go to Las Vegas? But the crowd's going to be intense. I think the Raiders are going to be able to muster up a little bit of extra because of that crowd, but still going to be tough to beat the Ravens. When you're talking about that Ravens defense, as good as the Raiders offense was last year, I still think it's going to be hard for them to score some points. And the whole telltale for the Raiders this year is going to be their defense. Did their defense improve enough over a horrible defense last year? If they are improved enough where Carr doesn't have to do too much, they could make the playoffs this season.
Mark Franco, very good job so far in the NFL. 5-0 in the preseason and one of the top NFL handicappers on VegasInsider.com. Mark, by the way, before we let you go, you have a play for tonight between Washington and Cincinnati?
I do. I have a preseason play tonight between the Bengals and the Washington football team. Got to get that Redskin moniker out of my head. It's a side play. It's up on Vegas Insider, available. Again, I appreciate you having me on, Kev, and look forward to maybe we can do this once the season starts here in just a few short weeks.
Definitely. Mark Franco, thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Kevin. Have a good day.
All right, you too. There is Mark Franco joining us here from VegasInsider.com. And we got plenty more to get to here on the Daily Insider. I want to talk some baseball. And that I definitely want to get into now. And when you look at the once we get to it, though, that's what I want to know. The Major League Baseball, you've had so many of these teams now that are really, really struggling. And so many of them are underdogs tonight. And out of these teams, when you have the likes of when you have the likes of the Pirates, who are a big underdog tonight, the Diamondbacks are coming off a sweep against the Rockies, but also the Tigers are a huge underdog. The Rangers are a huge underdog. The Orioles, who have lost 15 in a row, they're a huge underdog. So you have all of these teams right now that are really struggling and really have a lot of issues. So that's number one. Who do you take? What do you do with that? And I want to go through the games tonight in Major League Baseball. Let's start with the Reds facing the Marlins. That game in Cincinnati tonight. And Sonny Gray, he is on the mound for the Reds. In fact, the Reds are off of a victory over the Marlins last night. And Miami is just, they were off a tough sweep against the Atlanta Braves a few days ago. They just didn't play well. I mean, look, Atlanta's on fire. The two teams on fire right now in Major League Baseball, the Braves and the Yankees. They're just playing very, very well at this point. But you look at the Reds, who are off two really questionable losses to the Cubs, and now they get the Marlins. They can't afford any screw-ups at this point, the Reds. They scored 2 runs in the 2 losses to the Cubs. Then they blow out the Marlins last night 6-1. So at least they got back on track. Luis Castillo got back on track because he was struggling a bit for Cincinnati. And tonight, Sonny Gray goes. And Sonny Gray, who has had some issues at home this year, his ERA at Great American Ballpark is 5.44. But the Reds, though, are 3-1 in his last 4 starts. So that's good news. The Marlins have had a lot of struggles on the road so far this season, and they've lost 4 in a row. It's easy for them to beat the Cubs at home when the Cubs are terrible. But the Marlins, who are 30-30 at home, just 21-41 on the road. So the Reds are heavy favorite tonight in that game. Now, Washington faces Milwaukee. And again, another one of these big lines tonight. And the Nationals actually play with some confidence now because they knocked off the Blue Jays twice at home. But Washington's still a very decimated roster, obviously. And Milwaukee, off a tough loss to St. Louis last night. They were up early, and Brandon Woodruff was cruising. Then the Cardinals blew things open, and the Brewers couldn't get the sweep of St. Louis, but they still took 2 of 3 in that series. And Milwaukee, they now return home to play Washington, who had lost 7 straight before beating Toronto twice. And Patrick Corbin now takes the mound for the Nationals tonight. And for Corbin, he actually, look, the ERA is terrible, 6.04. He's 6-12 on the season. And he's off of 4 straight overs his last 4 starts. The numbers are bad for Corbin. He's allowed 6, 5, 4, 4, 4, 6, and that's his last 6 starts. So he has not allowed less than 4 earned runs in any of his last 6 starts, which is kind of amazing. And he faces Milwaukee tonight, who again, it's cleaned up against a lot of bad teams. They swept Chicago on the road. They took 2 of 3 at Pittsburgh. They beat Pittsburgh again before that. And Brett Anderson, who actually is the one guy who's lost during this whole stretch, gave up 6 earned runs against the Pirates his last time out. And he is winless his last 2 starts. It's a bit of a heavy number, but I don't know how much you want to trust Patrick Corbin in this spot. But Washington playing, I say a little bit better. They've won 2 in a row, but they got swept by the Mets on the road last time they played away from Nationals Park. The Pirates and the Cardinals. This is interesting because Miles Mikolas makes his first start since May for St. Louis. This is a guy that won 18 games a few seasons ago. And he's had some shoulder problems, and now he's back in the rotation for the stretch run for St. Louis, who right now is above 500. Mitch Keller goes for Pittsburgh. He's winless his last few starts, but he pitched well against St. Louis last year in 2 starts. Pirates are 1 loss away from 80 at this point. But Pittsburgh, looking back at, and again, I don't want to disparage St. Louis, but look who the Pirates have played over the last, since the end of July. They got swept by the Diamondbacks on the road. Fine. Okay, Arizona's a bad team. But since then, here is who Pittsburgh has played. At San Francisco, Milwaukee, Philadelphia, at Milwaukee, at Cincinnati, St. Louis, Milwaukee, and at the Dodgers. Just a brutal stretch for any team, much less the Pirates. So I think Pittsburgh plus 1.5 could be a look tonight, especially since St. Louis did sweep Pittsburgh on the road. And the Pirates won 3 of 4 at Busch Stadium a little earlier this season. And the Pirates are just coming off a 3-game sweep at the hands of the Dodgers. I mean, they're getting, they're Dodgers laying $3 every single game. And St. Louis, especially off of this win last night, now you're flipped to a pretty heavy favorite with a guy that hasn't pitched since May. I think is asking a lot. Arizona and Colorado is interesting because both these teams coming off home sweeps, but yet Colorado laying nearly $2. Tyler Gilbert, who no-hit the Padres in his first career start this past weekend, and Arizona's playing better. I mean, for them, they took 3 of 4 from San Diego. They swept Philadelphia at home. That's pretty good. Colorado just swept San Diego at home. So both these teams playing with some confidence. Colorado's 41-21 at home. And they have 14 road wins. Like, think about that. If Colorado was just average on the road or a little below average and not bad, they could be in the playoff race. They really could. And that National League West, which is completely stacked with the Giants running away, playing very well. The Dodgers right behind them. San Diego's had their struggles of late, but they're still in the playoff race. And Colorado is 11 under. They're not going to the playoffs, but their home record, Colorado's 41-21 at home. The Dodgers are 40-20 at home. So it just goes to show you that the Rockies are up there as far as home field advantages in Major League Baseball. Just they can't win on the road. But Tyler Gilbert now coming off the no-hitter his last start for Arizona against San Diego. Now he faces Colorado. Austin Gomber, who pitched well earlier in the season, he's a guy that at home has been dynamic. 5-1 record, 1.70 ERA at Coors Field. And Gomber, 4 innings, 5 earned runs. His last time out against San Francisco, rather, he allowed 4 earned runs in an inning against San Diego, both those on the road. But he beat Miami at home, beat Seattle at home, beat Texas at home. So against those kinds of teams, he's done pretty well. And now let's see Arizona, if they could carry the momentum off a really good homestand, now going on the road, which may be asking a lot for them. The Mets and the Dodgers, again, another heavy number, and the Mets, who are below 500. I mean, the Mets, I watched that game against San Francisco, the end of it, the Wednesday afternoon game, if you caught that. Mets lost the first 2 to the Giants. They were down 1-0 going to the 9th. Tyler McGill pitched great for New York, but they couldn't get any runs. And Anthony DeSclafani left in the second inning with an ankle injury, so the Giants went with a bullpen game against the Mets. Mets still couldn't score any runs. And then in the 9th inning, the Mets finally got one to tie. Then they go to extras. They took the lead. Giants came back and tied it. Then the Mets got a 3-run homer from Kevin Pillar and kind of put the game out of reach, and that ended their losing streak. But then the Mets came back last night. Taijuan Walker went 6 innings, but they still lost to the Dodgers 4-1. They just can't score, this Mets team. That's the big issue. And this is why they've fallen back. Atlanta's caught fire in the National League East, and they look like the team to beat. I mean, the Braves, who we'll get to in a second because they play the Orioles in Interleague. Atlanta, who was 1 win away from the World Series last year, without their ace pitcher this year, Mike Soroka. They've had all sorts of pitching issues in their starting rotation. They bulked up their lineup at the deadline. They lost Ronald Acuna Jr. to a knee injury, and yet the Braves, they've gotten it together. I think it's 14-3 the last 17. They've just been unbelievable, but the Mets have gone the other way. And when you don't have Jacob deGrom in there, and who knows when he's coming back, Marcus Stroman is up and down. Carlos Carrasco, who actually goes tonight, he hasn't been great. And that's a big problem for the Mets right now. It really is. And Carrasco, who actually was lit up by the Dodgers on Sunday Night Baseball, now he faces them again. 6 earned runs in 2 innings in a 14-4 loss. He went against Max Scherzer. Now he's going against Walker Buehler. So pick your poison there if you're the Mets. Now, Buehler, right in the middle of the Cy Young conversation in the National League, 12-2 record, 2.09 ERA. His numbers are off the charts right now. And Buehler did beat the Mets. Well, he got no decision against the Mets, but 7 innings, an earned run, 10 strikeouts. That was a Saturday game. They won 2-1 in extra innings. When you look at Buehler, the last 5 starts, he's allowed 1, 1, 1, 0, 1 as far as earned runs. Yeah, I mean, he's going to end up winning the Cy Young. Jacob deGrom will not win the Cy Young because he's been out so long, but Walker Buehler will probably end up winning in the National League. I really believe, because you're on the Dodgers. Guys like Brandon Woodruff, Corbin Burns has been great for the Brewers, but Woodruff has struggled a bit. And now Buehler he's right behind Zach Wheeler. Zach Wheeler's not pitched well of late. And Wheeler was lit up late in the game against Arizona yesterday. So I just don't see where Buehler doesn't end up winning that award. Philadelphia and San Diego is the last game of the night in the National League, and a pair of lefties on the mound. Blake Snell, who has been so up and down for the Padres in his first season out there, his home numbers, 1.21 ERA in 9 home starts, outside of getting lit up by Oakland, giving up 7 earned runs a few weeks ago. And I know you can say, oh, well, you could be picky and take stuff out, and then it looks a lot better. But Blake Snell's ERA at Petco Park so far this season is 2.40. You take out the 7 earned runs in 1 start against Oakland, it's 1.21 in 9 other starts. So Snell is completely dominated when he pitched at home. And San Diego, they're 7-2 his last 9 starts. And that includes some road wins, too. His last time out, they lost at Arizona, 5 innings, 2 earned runs. I mean, the guy has pitched, pretty well down the stretch. 1 bad start, but besides that, he did beat Philadelphia. He got no decision with 4 scoreless innings and an 11-1 win. He didn't get the win, but he pitched well. So he's faced Philadelphia, shut them down. Now, the Phillies offensively, just goes to show you how long these seasons are in Major League Baseball, that the Phillies had an 8-game winning streak. They were the toast of the National League East for like a minute. And then the Braves were lurking. They have made their jump over the Mets and the Phillies. Philadelphia, since sweeping the Mets, they're 2-7 their last 9, and they face the Dodgers at home. Fine. They face the Reds at home. Playoff threat. But to score 2 runs apiece in 3 games at Arizona is beyond embarrassing. And Madison Bumgarner, who pitched yesterday, he's actually put up really good numbers his last 5 or 6 starts for the Diamondbacks. He's pitching like the old Madison Bumgarner. Besides that, that's totally embarrassing for the Philadelphia Phillies and what they're doing right now. that they've scored 2 runs or less in 7 of the past 9 games. And they're 2-7 in the stretch. And the Phillies get San Diego this weekend. Then they return home to get Tampa Bay. So it's not getting any easier for them. Now, for the Padres, this isn't exactly a walk in the park for them, too. They are 1-7 their last 8 games. They are coming off a 1-6 road trip against Colorado and Arizona. And I did say before that Colorado, yes, they're great at home, but they get swept there. And granted, the Padres are just running out of pitchers at this point. That's their problem. Yu Darvish is hurt. They go with, in this series against Colorado, Ryan Weathers, Matt Strom, and and they get Jake Arrieta off the trash heap from the Cubs, and he was terrible. So the Padres, the biggest non-move was them not acquiring Max Scherzer from the Nationals. Because it seemed like it was going that way, and then the Dodgers end up getting Scherzer, which they don't need. I mean, any team can use Max Scherzer, but they're fine without Max Scherzer, where the Padres needed him because they're running out of arms. Past Darvish, who's hurt, Snell, who's pitched better, Joe Musgrove, who it seems like is up and down at times, and they have no one left. Bullpen's good, but the starting pitching is just not good for the Padres. So now they've gone through this stretch of playing Colorado, Arizona, Miami. Before that, Arizona, split with Oakland, Colorado, Oakland, Miami. So for the exception of playing the Athletics, they played a bunch of garbage during the stretch, and they still haven't even dominated. They do get Fernando, or they have had Fernando Tatis Jr. back in the lineup since the weekend. He had the big game Sunday at Arizona, and at least he's back now. I mean, obviously that had something to do with it. He was out for a little bit for the Padres, but so Blake Snell goes tonight. Matt Moore, he counters for Philadelphia. He's actually off a really good start at home against Cincinnati his last time out, but on the road, he's been terrible. I wanted to take Philadelphia in this spot tonight, but seeing the line, I feel like the Padres are the play. I mean, even run line it at home. I feel like they're going to get back on track tonight, playing back at Petco after a really rough stretch, and Philadelphia's offense is just, they're terrible right now. Rhys Hoskins is hurt. And it feels like Bryce Harper's cooling down a little bit. There's not a lot left in that lineup. Past JT Realmuto, Bryce Harper, McCutchen, there's really not a lot in that lineup. The bottom half of Philadelphia's lineup, this isn't good. So they're a heavy dog tonight at San Diego. Now let's take a look at the American League. And the Yankees have won 7 straight. So let's break up the Yankees. Everyone had, trashed them all season long. They're up to 70-52 on the season. They passed the Red Sox because they swept them. And you know what? They're only 5 back of the Rays. It's not crazy. But the American League, with that wild card race, okay, look, the White Sox are in. They're going to win the Central. So we got them in. Houston avoided major disaster by beating the Royals yesterday in extra innings. They're still leading Oakland. So if you think the White Sox, Astros, and we'll say Tampa Bay are in, we'll say those are the 3, and you got 2 wild cards left. Nobody from the Central, so you could just throw them all out. Who's left? Yankees, Red Sox, Athletics. The Mariners are still hanging around a little bit. That was a big win for them yesterday at Texas after they blew the big 9th inning lead. So, and Toronto, I think, is kind of faded. I don't think we have faith in Toronto to be one of the wild card teams. But Yankees, Red Sox, A's, even take Seattle out of the equation. Those 3, one really good team is going to be left out in the cold. And Boston got Chris Sale back. He's pitching tonight. They've had some it's a miracle Boston got as far as they did with their starting pitching so far this season. But then when you look at the Yankees and Garrett Cole, who was out with COVID, and he had some struggles, it's almost a miracle the Yankees got as far as they have with the pitching they have. But the Yankees tonight, though, they go with Nestor Cortez, and Minnesota throws out Charlie Barnes. So the Yankees won last night over the Twins 7-5. So 7 straight wins now for New York. And during the stretch, I mean, the pitchers that have won during the stretch, and Jameson Taillon has been decent of late for the Yankees, but past Garrett Cole, I mean, Andrew Heaney pitched well against Boston a few days ago, and they got him from the Angels at the trade deadline. But still, how the Yankees are doing this without really any great starting pitching or what we're used to seeing is kind of amazing. And Minnesota, they've played better. They dug themselves that huge hole to start the season. But Minnesota still comes into tonight's action. They've won 6 of 9. And Nestor Cortez, who has got a low ERA, 2.55. The Yankees have won 3 of his past 4 starts. So that's not bad. 7 strikeouts, 6 innings of work his last time out against the White Sox is a substantial underdog. They were plus 160 against the White Sox. But, I mean, that's just a tough game because Charlie Barnes, I don't know how much you have faith in him if you're backing the Twins. His last time out, no decision, but a victory over the Rays, plus 135, allowed 1 earned run and 5 innings of work. But the Yankees have Anthony Rizzo back, and their offense clicking a little bit more during this winning streak, 7-5, 2-5, 2-5, 5-7. So they're getting some pretty good offense during the stretch. Detroit's at Toronto, and the Tigers, off that massive meltdown against the Angels yesterday, up 10-2, and they lose 13-10. So they end up getting swept by the Angels at home, and now they head to Toronto to face the Blue Jays. And the Blue Jays, they're coming in with struggles that they lost, 2 of 3 at Seattle. They won the Sunday game. They lose 2 at Washington. They gave 20 runs in 2 games to the Nationals, which is a little bit unforgivable considering the Nationals really don't have a lot offensively. Past Juan Soto and maybe even Josh Bell. There's not a lot on that team. And Washington scored 20 runs off them. So the Tigers, who have lost now 4 in a row and 5 of 6, they sent out Tyler Alexander, who hasn't been bad for Detroit of late. Gave 4 earned runs his last time out against Cleveland. But Detroit had won his previous 5 starts. So that's a positive note. Robbie Ray, who does have very good numbers for the Blue Jays, he's allowed 2 earned runs or less than 9 of his past 10 starts, in fact. And the only thing is, though, I mean, Ray's on a 4-start under streak, but also the Blue Jays have lost 4 of his past 10 starts when he's listed as a favorite 160 or higher. So he actually has been knocked off a few of these times in this big favorite spot. The Angels and the Indians, they meet up in Cleveland. And I want to give you the stat, which is, to me, mind-blowing. That since late May, the Angels are 25-4. 25-4 the last 29 games against teams with below 500 records. So they just swept Detroit. And during that stretch, they've beaten the likes of Texas, Baltimore, teams, Kansas City, teams like that. But the Angels are 25-4 the last 29 against teams with losing records. And who they face tonight? Cleveland, losing record. Now, granted, Cleveland's only a few games below 500, but still, it fits. And the Indians, off of a series loss to Minnesota, I just don't know how much. I mean, I don't know how you even go against that. When Shohei Ohtani, if he starts as a favorite against a team with a losing record like Detroit, you say, oh, well, maybe I'm not too sure about it, even though Ohtani's been great. Just one side note. Somebody mentioned on social media, they said, is Shohei Ohtani having the greatest season ever in Major League Baseball? I don't see how that answer is no. I don't see how the answer is no. Okay. I almost had a double negative there to say. I don't see how the answer is no. The guy's got 40 home runs. He's like 8-1 on the mound. He'll win the MVP in a walk. That he's doing all of this and he's pitching and he's the best pitcher on your team. It's got to be it's probably going to be the greatest season in Major League Baseball history for a player. To do everything he's doing from a position player standpoint, from a hitting standpoint, and from a pitching standpoint. To do all of that, to carry your team, he is literally the team. Mike Trout's been out the entire season mostly. They have nothing else. And he's like the only reason anybody's watching that team. So, yes, on that one, yes, I believe it's got to be the greatest season of all time. But anyway, so back to the point that the Angels, if you're getting them as an underdog and they're playing a team with a losing record, how do you not take them? And Cleveland, who last time out at home, they were embarrassed by the Athletics getting swept. I just don't. And the starting pitcher for Cleveland tonight, I'm probably going to butcher his name, Hentges, he's going to go probably 2 or 3 innings for Cleveland. So he's not going to go that far. Now, Barria's probably going to go that far either for the Angels, but that number is too hard to overcome, the 25-4 against losing teams. Texas and Boston, holy line. Look at this. Chris Sale laying 300 against the Texas Rangers tonight. And it's Chris Sale's second start. He beat Baltimore the last time out, and Baltimore was a heavy underdog, and they stink, and we know all that. But here's the thing with the Red Sox, though. The Red Sox were just swept by the Yankees on the road. So now we're all expecting Boston just to show up and play and win because they're the Red Sox, and the Rangers are 14-45 on the road. But is this a time maybe you catch the Red Sox, even though they're not playing well? But I'm saying you catch them. I want to take Texas plus the 1.5. You're still getting plus 140 on a plus 1.5. So the Red Sox can win the game, granted by a run, and you can still get plus 140 back on Texas in this one. I just don't have faith in Texas' offense. I don't. And I know the Rangers had that big 9th inning yesterday against Seattle. They were around 7-2. They got 5 to tie it. Then they went to extras. They shut down the Mariners in the top of the 10th. They went to the bottom of the 10th. The first runner on, he, on a ground ball, it was kind of it wasn't a weird play, but it was a Garcia hit. It was a double play ball, runner out at second. The throw was high to first. Garcia was safe. And the runner from second who went to third, if he just would have been there, you had runners at first and third with 1 out. Instead, he kind of went off the base a little too far. And then as he went to go back to third base, the throw came across the diamond. He was tagged out. I mean, there was no controversy behind it. He was out. But it was just a silly play because, A, the next batter, there was a pass ball. He would have scored. And B, it was a sack. It would have been a sack fly. He said it was a fly out to center field, and that ended the inning because that was the third out. So Texas would have won the game in extra innings, but instead they didn't score. So then Seattle went in the top of the 11th inning, hit a 2-run homer, and then Texas got one to the bottom, so kind of killed the run line if you had Seattle. But the point is that Texas, they're so bad on the road. They're so bad everywhere. Dane Dunning actually, you know what's funny? If you want to take the shot, you want to call your shot here with Texas or Texas plus 1.5, the Rangers have won 6 of Dane Dunning's last 7 starts. So he actually has pitched well if you really want to take a shot in the dark on the Texas Rangers. And I'm not sure if you do. Dunning did not face the Red Sox earlier this year when the teams played in Arlington. But I'm not sure if you do want to take the shot, but this could be the one where maybe you call your shot on the Texas Rangers tonight. And you get Sale's second start. Maybe he's not as sharp. We'll see. All right, Chicago and Tampa Bay. We always like to say this, possible playoff preview. Always a playoff preview when 2 division leaders get together. But Lucas Giolito, Michael Wacha on the mound. And the Rays off an easy sweep of the Orioles. They're 15-1 this year against the Orioles. I mean, can Tampa Bay play someone else? Is that possible? It feels like they played Baltimore a lot recently. But the Rays get Baltimore on the road again at the end of August. My God. But that's the final series. So they won't play them in September, which is actually good. We don't need to see Tampa Bay waste their time with them. But the White Sox, off of the series win over Oakland, they won 3 of 4 in that series against the A's. And they lost yesterday by a run. Tampa Bay, look, they cruised past Baltimore. They won every game by 5+ runs. Won by 4 runs. Okay, everyone by 4+ runs. But they got Chicago tonight. And the last time these teams played was back in mid-June. Tampa Bay won the opener. Chicago won the final 2. And Chicago in the third game, they were up 7-2, blew it, and the White Sox won in extra innings. So Lucas Giolito goes tonight for Chicago. And Giolito off of a loss last time out against the Yankees, in which he gave up 2 earned runs, 4 innings of work. Giolito's gone 4 innings in 2 of his last 3 starts. And on the road, his home and road numbers are kind of similar. So there's really no advantage going either way with him. But for Giolito, looking back at it, in his last 4 starts, he's laid 175 and lost, 175 and lost, 275 and lost, 1 at -210. Against Houston, in his shortest price, all right, so he's laying tonight, 120-ish tonight against Tampa Bay? Laying 110 at home against Houston, complete game 3 hitter. And Michael Wacha has not really been good for Tampa Bay this year at all. He's just not been good. They lost 12-0 to Minnesota his last time out. 5.91 ERA his last 2 starts. He's allowed 13 earned runs. So Giolito, actually, there's probably some value in him tonight as a short favorite against Tampa Bay. All right, a few more games for baseball tonight. The Mariners and the Astros, and I just mentioned Seattle, they remain in the Lone Star State. They swept Texas, which, look, if you're the Mariners and you want to be taken seriously as a contender, which, again, they are totally overachieved this year, that Seattle and San Francisco, the biggest surprises in Major League Baseball this year. All right, no question about it. When you look at everyone else, Rays were in the World Series, Dodgers were in the World Series, Braves were in the NLCS last year, Astros in the ALCS. Milwaukee has been a bit of a surprise. I don't think we expected them to do what they're doing, but also the Cubs ripped down their team. But Seattle, though, if you want to be taken seriously, you got to sweep Texas. And they did that. And the Mariners have beaten the Rangers a lot this year. So that you have to do if you're the Mariners. You can't be losing those games. But now you're playing teams like the Astros. And they make the short trip tonight to Minute Maid Park. They face Lance McCullers Jr., who has been, even though he lost his last time out to the Angels, he's been pretty good this year. 9-4 record, 3.22 ERA. In fact, the Astros have lost his last 2 starts, both as a heavy favorite against the Twins and against the Angels, and he's in that same spot again tonight for the Astros, who, and this is where Houston, again, it's depends on your competition. Because Houston was swept at home by Detroit. They were swept at home by Baltimore. They lost 3 of 4 at home to Minnesota. They were swept in the road at Texas. They almost got swept in a 4-game series at Kansas City, still lost 3 of 4. So teams like that who are not even close to the playoffs, they're having struggles with. But they play well against Boston and against Oakland and Chicago and teams like that. They played well. And the Yankees, they play well against them. But yet these bottom feeders, for some reason, they've had a ton of problems against them this year. And Seattle's just a middle-of-the-road team. Seattle's not bad, but they're not an elite team. So Seattle's one of those middle-of-the-road teams. And McCullers this year against Seattle, he's faced him once, 6 innings, 4 earned runs, 8-6 win at Seattle back on July 27th. And Yusei Kikuchi, who is back in the rotation for the Mariners, I mean, he's been in the rotation, but the numbers are so up and down with him too. 7-6 record, 3.82 ERA. What's funny is against Houston earlier this year, it's like a tale of two starts for him. That Kikuchi had in 2 starts at home, he's allowed 9 runs against the Astros. On the road, 7 innings, 1 hit, no runs, a 1-0 victory back in late April, plus 145. So on the road, actually Kikuchi, when you look back at it, he's been a pretty decent pitcher for the Mariners. 3.10 ERA. I don't know, maybe worth a shot. I mean, Seattle's playing with house money at this point. That if they end up falling off, so what? They are definitely playing with house money. The 3 interleague games, Royals and Cubs, Royal Rumble at Wrigley Field, but both these teams out of it. It was basically like a pick 'em earlier. Now Chicago is trending more towards a short favorite, and Brad Keller against Zach Davies today. The Royals off this long homestand where they took 3 or 4 from Houston, but they were swept by the Cardinals. They lost 2 of 3 to the Yankees. And the Cubs playing with confidence off of 2 wins at Cincinnati, plus 170, plus 285. Now you're a short favorite with Zach Davies on the mound today. And Chicago's offense really hasn't been great. Davies, 0-4. The Cubs are in his last 4 starts. Yeah, they've been lit up in a lot of those. I mean, he wasn't bad his last time out against the Marlins, but before that, 7 earned runs. Before that, 7 earned runs. 5.18 ERA at Wrigley Field this year for Davies. And for Brad Keller, who he wasn't bad his last time out against St. Louis, ended up allowing 4 runs in 6 2/3 innings, 8 strikeouts. He's winless his last 4 starts for Kansas City. Again, not a great pitcher, but he wasn't bad his last time out. I don't want to trust either team. I'd probably lean Royals just because the Cubs, after 2 wins, as a heavy dog, now you're going to lay a short number with them at home. I mean, they're just not a good team. I mean, we know. I mean, Kansas City is better offensively than Chicago is right now. It's just the pitchers are a toss-up. Atlanta and Baltimore, and it's about the haves and the have-nots. Atlanta going this way, Baltimore going this way. Actually, Atlanta going this way, Baltimore going that way. And the Braves, who right now are in line to win the National League East. They went through that, 18-game stretch of win-loss, win-loss, win-loss. Now they can't lose. And they've been excellent of late, and they're winning games they're supposed to win. That's what it's all about. The Houston Astros are kind of like the exception to the rule that they can lose these games to bad teams and still be fine, where other teams have got to win these games. And that's what the Braves have done. Swept Washington on the road, swept Miami on the road, and now they go to Baltimore, who has lost 15 straight. But I'll give Baltimore a break here, even though I don't know how you give anybody with a 15-game losing streak a break. The Orioles, during the stretch, they played Tampa Bay, Boston, Detroit is the only one that kind of sticks out, Tampa Bay and the Yankees. So they play the 3 top teams of the AL East. That all of them are cleaning up against the Orioles. Now you got the top team in the National League East, so I'm not taking anything away from the Braves. Max Fried starts for Atlanta tonight, and he's off 3 starts, allowing 2 earned runs. So why in the world would you take Baltimore tonight? You would just hope that Keegan Aiken, who's 0-7, maybe get him a plus 1.5. You still get some good return. I felt this way with the Cubs when they had lost 12 straight. And granted, Kyle Hendricks is the ace of the Cubs, and Keegan Aiken is not the ace of the Orioles. That they're not going to lose 25 straight games. I mean, people might say the Orioles may, but you're going to win eventually. And for Atlanta coming up, wow. Their next 3 series, Yankees at home, Giants at home, at the Dodgers. So, Atlanta needs these wins. Atlanta cannot afford to go 1-2 against Baltimore, even 2. They got to win all 3. But for the Orioles, I mean, what can you do at this point if you're them? Like they've just everything is totally spun out of control. Final game, San Francisco and Oakland, Battle of the Bay Bridge Series, whatever they want to call it now. And the Giants are short favorite against the Athletics. This is a really good series, actually, at the Coliseum. Alex Wood and James Caprillion on the mound. The Giants off a great homestand, beating Arizona, beating Colorado, and the Mets, and they lost that final game in extra innings. Alex Wood, who, look, the Giants did a great job of putting together this rotation with a lot of journeymen, to say the least, veterans. Kevin Gausman, DeSclafani, Alex Wood. Tyler Webb has pitched really well for San Francisco. And Alex Wood has 10 wins so far in the season. Giants have won his last 5 starts. And for the most part, they're coming against not great competition. Now, Alex Wood did beat the A's at home, or he got into a decision, but the Giants won that game against the A's at home back in late June, laying 120, went 5 1/3, allowed 2 runs, one of them earned. So, Wood pitched well there, and San Francisco got the win. Caprillion, who still has a pretty good ERA this year, 3.33. He is coming off of A's have won his last 2 starts, both as a heavy favorite against the Rangers. So I don't know how much that's really saying. But he didn't face San Francisco when these teams hooked up last time. But Caprillion on a 4-1 overrun his last 5 starts. And that total at 9 tonight. But that should be a pretty entertaining series in the Bay Area. And, of course, we have 2 NFL games tonight. We talked about with Mark Franco a little bit earlier. We have the Chiefs and the Cardinals from Arizona. Chiefs laying 3 there. Andy Reid, allegedly the Chiefs starters are going to play a whole half. Cliff Kingsbury hasn't really revealed anything for the Cardinals. And then you have Washington and Cincinnati hooking up in the other game in D.C. and a whole bunch of games coming up tomorrow in the NFL, including that late game between the Raiders and the Rams in LA. And you don't see a lot of 6.5-point road favorites in the preseason. But look, Sean McVay is not going to, if he's not going to play his guys, he wants to sit them out because he doesn't want them to get hurt. That's his prerogative, and he sees no value in the preseason. Then that's fine too. So that's the look at what's going on right now. And again, so much to talk about next week as we crank back to 5 days a week here on the Daily Insider. Labor Day Monday, we won't have a show, but 5 days a week. And we're really excited because we're going to get a lot more guests on, a lot more of the handicappers from VegasInsider.com. We're going to have them join the show as we move forward. And we're still going to be on at noon Eastern. And in case you missed the show or you came in late to the show, we'll have it up on the homepage on VegasInsider.com and also on our YouTube channel at Vegas Insider. We'll have it there as well. You can catch the Daily Insider, and we're going to be with you at noon Eastern from Monday through Friday moving forward. So we're looking forward to that. We only had the Tuesday and Thursdays during the summer, but now we'll be back to 5 days a week. And next Saturday, college football starts. So 4 games in college football, and then the following week is the big slate and a lot of games to look at there. So my thanks to Mark Franco for joining us. He's 5-0 so far in the preseason. Check out his picks at VegasInsider.com. I am Kevin Rogers. Thank you so much for watching this edition of the Daily Insider. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you again on Monday right here at VegasInsider.com.